Welcome to this episode of After Hours Ag. We've got Kalen Manthei with. He's a farmer in Hettinger, North Dakota. We are at the KMOT Farm Show. I've got a couple farmers who are stepping in the booth here, willing to share their story, share a little bit about them, and we get to hear what they're up to and what maybe interesting challenges you face or opportunities you face. And Kalen, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Kalen, we got to get all the basics out of the way, right? Like, how old are you?
Okay, so I'm 34 years old. I've been farming since 2013. I grew up in southwest Minnesota, attended college at South Dakota State, and got my degree in animal science there, and then moved to Hettinger and started farming full-time after college.
Great. Thanks for knocking all those things out for us. How many acres are you currently farming?
We farm roughly about 10,000 acres of tillable and then do about 900 acres of alfalfa, grass, hay stuff too.
All right. What generation farm?
So it's kind of a complicated deal there too because we kind of skipped a generation. So technically fourth, but none of my parents actually took a full time into the farming world at all. So I'm currently operating on the farm my mother grew up on. My grandpa only had all daughters, and I was his only grandson at the time. And after school, I just kind of took an interest in what he was doing out there. He was getting kind of close to retirement age and slowing down a little bit. So after school, I spent one summer during college there and kind of worked for him in the summer. And then after graduation, decided to move out there and progressively work with him and work my way into his operation.
That is great. It's not too often that when you skip a generation, that next generation, that skipped one, or the one after the skipped one, the grandkids, can get back into it and be successful.
It's a pretty rare opportunity I was given, and it would not be remotely possible if it wasn't for the determination of my grandparents to want to see their farm continue.
Yeah.
I mean, the help that they gave me and the groundwork and the steps that they provided for me to get into that position is unlike many people see in their lives, I can tell you that.
Well, you talked about you would go and visit your grandpa and grandma's farm. What drew you to want to do it?
I always just liked the actual just passion and the energy that my grandfather always had for the farm and for the work he did. You know, he never really seemed like he was ever getting up and going to work. I mean, he was always excited about what he was doing every year. He was excited to put the crop in the ground. He was excited to harvest. He was just excited to take care and cultivate his land, his property, and just kind of have his legacy. And the passion he always had throughout his entire life for what he did just kind of really drew me into understanding that agriculture is not just a job, but it is kind of a lifestyle and a way of life, and that the passion you can grow and the self-pride you can get from what you're doing there kind of really helped me resonate to wanting to be what he was doing and kind of follow in his footsteps.
Great. Now, are you still farming? Is he farming alongside you?
No, he's no longer with us anymore,
okay.
But my grandmother still lives in the area there, and she actually operates a few acres yet that we custom farm for her, and she just likes to keep her feet in it too, because you know that older generation, you can't ever just completely walk away. So
no, and then you maybe don't want them to either. It's good to have that history and that reminder of who came before you.
Absolutely.
Now, who's farming with you? Are you doing it all yourself?
So yeah, that's another interesting dynamic that we got in there is. So as I mentioned before, that my grandfather had no sons, and he was getting up there in age, and there was a neighbor that his name was Kelly Howe that was helping him out, kind of hauling grain and moving some things around there, and they were kind of working together about the time I come back from school to kind of come on the operation there, and him and I got along pretty good, and he only lived a few miles down the way, and he didn't quite have the opportunity to step in on his family farm. So he was kind of looking at trying to step out on his own a little bit there too. And we were kind of sitting down and talking about how hard it is for young guys to really get going and get a start in there. And being 2 miles down the road is kind of, well, we can compete against each other all our lives, or we can pool some resources and try to do this together. And so that's what we started K&K Ag, that we currently operate under, and we've been doing that for 10 years now. So
wow, that's not just an experiment and you're in the early stages. You've proven it can work.
Yeah, and actually I really enjoy the fact of having the outside and the non-family dynamic. Yeah, I kind of feel it takes away a lot more of the drama and the feelings and the emotion of it when two people from outside parties can sit down and just make more business decisions, less emotional decisions without that family tie and that family brash there. And we try to separate some certain entities. When it comes to some like land purchases and stuff, we kind of try to keep that our own and rent it back there, so that at the end of the day, we are kind of still building our own equity and our own legacy on our own too. So,
which is probably a good idea if, let's say, the next generation, your kids, his kids, they want to maybe do something different, or how do you separate that out? That's probably a good idea.
Yeah, no, it's been working out really well for us, and like I said, just taking that emotion out of the idea of a family farm with two individuals has been a neat challenge, and I mean, it all comes to obstacles of just of how his family, how he was raised, and watching his family farm and watching how my family farm, and kind of trying to mix those dynamics on how we want to operate this business. But it's been fun. It's been interesting, and like I said, it's not something you see very often, of two outside forces that are in the farming world together like that. But
wow. What other challenges have you faced that maybe you didn't anticipate, or maybe you did anticipate you'd have?
Well, I would say kind of the hardest thing is once you kind of start to grow, and especially in our younger ages of this, is just the amount of capital and stuff that it takes to kind of keep things current and keep things going. And you have that good year, but there's always those expenses down the road. And when does a guy upgrade some equipment? When does he maybe try to dial back and maybe fix and work and get by on this? So it was really trying to step through the capital purchase, especially with two different parties and they're involved too. We're two different phases of our lives. He's got children. I don't currently have children, and so there's just kind of different priorities that are set there. So kind of trying to manipulate what we're going to do with extra disposable income and what purchases to make and stuff is probably one of the things that I've had the most struggle with, or we have had, is just trying to decide when is the right time to be making the right investments.
That's a great point, and I'm sure as you're looking at a fair number of acres, but even if you grow or scale, I mean, it's just the scale continues to go with it.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely something you got to look across the table and even call each other and have meetings, whatever it takes to.
And that's kind of one of those deals too. That's really hard because with the amount of acres we're farming, with the size of equipment we're farming, with the manpower we're doing, it's kind of like that fine line. You start scaling up too much. Then you got to upgrade a bunch of equipment, maybe find some more manpower, but you start going down much below that, well, then we might be over equipment, have too much equipment, too much capital for the amount of acres we're farming. So there is kind of a fine line of trying to figure out what works for us and what cash flows. So.
Yeah, good point. I can see similar but different challenges, as my brother and I own Red E together, and sometimes we split hairs over the silliest things. And then sometimes I think we fail to remember that we're more aligned than we think when we're arguing about stuff. But that's good.
Very true.
And what crops do you grow currently?
So we raise corn, soybeans, sunflowers, spring wheat, canola, are kind of our main ones there. So. Okay,
good mix.
Yeah.
Which ones are your favorite?
I like the spring wheat's just kind of the staple of that country over in southwest North Dakota. The spring wheat's just kind of fun because that's kind of what everyone grew up doing down there. The canola's pretty new to the country. The sunflowers come with their own harvesting challenges. Everyone loves raising, combining corn. It doesn't matter where you're from. Everyone enjoys that. But so I'd say corn and the spring wheat are probably the two I enjoy the most. But.
Okay. The corn's like the gold going into the thing,
Yeah, just a fun big crop and makes a lot of bushels and
a lot of bushels are coming off usually, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah.
That's right. Now you talked about going to college in South Dakota. Tell me why you pursued going to college and why you went to South Dakota, and then also what do you feel like, or how has it benefited you in your operation?
So the reason I ended up at South Dakota State is, like I said, I grew up in southwest Minnesota, and the Brookings was about 90 miles from where I grew up. And I actually grew up, my dad worked for the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, and my mom was a teacher, so we just lived on a small little hobby farm, and I was big into the 4-H and the showing livestock and that kind of world. So I actually went to South Dakota State to pursue a degree in animal science. And just typical, you graduate, you don't use that degree that you paid for so much there. But I think the one thing that I've always taken away, I'll never regret, is just the social experiences I gained in that institution, and just how to interact with different people and how different people will encounter and deal with different tasks there. I was pretty involved on campus there with the AGR fraternity and the Little I. So I was in different groups and stuff on campus too. That we had some different obligations and stuff to do there, but just getting out and just meeting people from all different spectrums of the world, putting them in one room and learning just how to communicate with people, how to read a room, how to translate their thoughts, how to counteract with your thoughts, and just I think there's just the social skills I gained in college I think has been the most beneficial for me as I've pursued as an adult here. But
nice. And so you're not doing the animal science side of things?
No, I
you
had
don't
no
have
livestock.
any animals?
No.
Okay. I thought maybe you had some animals too, part of the ranching side or something. But you talked about the social side of things with people. Do you still stay connected with some of those people?
So most of the people I still do talk to that are outside are friends I made in college. I feel like that's where you kind of build those lifelong relationships with those guys. No, the handful of guys that I lived with majority of school and stuff there, still talk to pretty regularly. Try to get back over there and get together for a weekend once in a while. But no, I still try to stay in touch with those guys as much as I can. So
very good, very good. Are you married then?
I am married.
Okay.
I'm going on about 18 months now, so pretty fresh into it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Is this a local person?
She grew up in the town in Hettinger there, so.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's not like you had to drag someone from a big city to a small town or something.
She was actually living in Sioux Falls at the time when I was living in Hettinger, and just happened to meet her when she was home for Christmas and holidays and stuff, and kind of just got to know her and kind of made that into a relationship, and before you know it, got her back in her hometown, and I'm living my dream of farming, and
great.
It just all worked out pretty well. So.
Is she very involved in the operation?
Not overly in the day-to-day operations there. She stays pretty busy with her work and stuff there, but she'll more than help with anything that we do, but as far as sitting out in the day-to-day stuff, she's not overly involved with much we do there. So
yeah, well, good. And that's great to have someone that's got your back and that's interested in farming, interested to have you in farming, right?
Yeah.
You got to have that support back home.
Absolutely. And she works in the ag industry too, so she understands what we're going through and sees a lot of the headlines of what big changes or the projected profit for farmers this year. So she kind of understands as the vibe of the season before we're going into it too, without having to be overly involved with exactly what we're doing. She's very in touch with the industry yet too. So.
All right. Now, if you could tell, now you're already still a younger person, similar age to me. Now I'm 41, so I got you beat a little bit. But what would you tell a younger self, a younger you, to do differently or things to lean in more on?
The first thing I'd ever tell myself is you're not as smart as you think you are when you're that young. when some of these people have been doing this for 30, 40 years or tried to tell you something, it's because they learned the same lesson too. And to take advice from some other people there and swallow that pride a little bit and realize that at 22, 23, 24, you're not mature as an adult and you're not as smart as you think you are. There's a reason they're telling you to do what you're doing there.
Oh, I think it's good that we all go through that. I hope. It's probably a rite of passage. You figure out, well, you don't have the world figured out, and you're not. Once you get outside the shelter of your parents or whatever you're in college, it's like, oh wow, this is a little more complicated than I thought it was.
Yeah, especially when you're jumping into an industry that, like I said, so many people have done for years and years and years, and you think you got just the golden ticket, and well, there's a reason that no one else is doing it that way sometimes. I mean, not saying that it's not worth being innovative, trying something and doing something, but most of the time, there's a reason they're telling you that it won't work. But
I'm thinking some of our seasoned folks that are listening are probably chuckling as they hear that, and if they probably went through that too when they were first starting out and like that. So how about this? How about what kind of colors are on the farm? Do you have a mix of machinery?
We're pretty much green guys.
Okay.
So,
and why is that?
Oh, that's what Grandpa always did.
Okay.
He was very proud of his John Deere there, and that's kind of what we stuck with there. We got a good support system for Deere in our particular area there, and just kind of always stayed with them, I guess. So
excellent. Do you run much equipment that your grandpa ran?
We still got his combines and his one old 4430 left. Otherwise, we've kind of changed and upgraded most of the other stuff there. But he towards the end of his year he liked running nice stuff, so he kept that fleet pretty pretty new for him when he was kind of retiring. So we came into a very nice fleet to start with. I can tell you that. So
that's good. I'm sure he was motivated too to invest and do more of that too, as he's maybe on his exit plan, just because he knows, hey, this is a good investment. This is something that Kalen's gonna benefit from, and it's not just ending with me.
Yeah, exactly. And like especially the combine, like he absolutely loved combining. There was nothing more than he loved combining. So I always made sure that he had a good, functional, comfortable combine to run. That was always criteria number one. So
excellent. What are some technologies that you've maybe tried or done or seen that have really been a game changer for you? Can you think of any?
Well, I would say the biggest thing, I mean, everyone, their dog's doing it now, but just the integration of variable rate and soil sampling and zone sampling has made a huge difference on our farm. Our area is very variable soils, get very sandy, or it can get kind of very clay. We get pretty limited rainfall down there, so trying to maximize what we can do with our fertility on certain acres has been just a huge game changer for us. Like I said, everyone's doing it now, but sometimes in those western areas, technology is a little bit slower to get there. I'm just kind of now starting to convert myself into like the John Deere Ops Center, so I can kind of do a better job of actually managing my equipment, my fuel consumption, and kind of getting a better grasp on my direct cost of everything there. I feel that's one area that I've kind of been lacking on a little bit there, so I'm kind of trying to use some of this technology there to keep some better data, get some more points to kind of work off, and try to stay better on the business side of things rather than focusing solely on just getting the work done, but also running that business a little bit more efficiently.
Yeah. Are you finding that those technologies deliver as promised?
Yeah, especially now we got a full-time hired man too, so being able to see where he's at, what he's doing, be able to kind of double check that he's kind of doing things within the spectrum that we are expecting him to do. It's kind of a good peace of mind too, just that you're not just turning him out and not talking to him for 12 hours. I can pop my phone open now and see that he's planting at 5.1 mile an hour and exactly what field I was supposed to be on. I could tell what hybrid he's got in the planter, and
Oh wow!
It's
he's
pretty
spraying the right field.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, I've heard horror stories.
Yeah, I mean, that stuff happens, but it just leaves that peace of mind of being able to make sure that everything is operating the way you're in one piece of equipment and everyone else is doing their thing. You just got to take a good deep breath that, okay, everything's going the way it's supposed to right now. And
what would you tell someone who's thinking about getting into this technology, who's wondering what it's going to take or how to start? What would you tell them? Is it just something you go to your dealer and talk to them about?
Yeah, most dealers are pretty helpful, especially like John Deere has really been pushing their technology side of things and that side of their business. So they've been very good about hosting meetings or informational meetings. They got plenty of guys that seem to be able to take on some one-on-one time and work on there. And I think the biggest thing with anything new like that is you just have to open it up and play with it, click around, look at it, just get yourself comfortable with it, because it all can seem kind of scary at first, but just like anything, when everyone got their first smartphone, well, how do you even run this thing? Well, now we're lost without them. I mean, it just takes time to learn some things and just take a little bit of time to want to learn it. Maybe the main thing is not go in there with a mindset that all this technology is just a bunch of hoo-ha, but if you take the time and really study it and work your way around it and navigate it, you're going to find out that these tools are way more beneficial than you ever thought they would be, too. But
yeah, is it just a young man's game, you think, or you think this
No,
stuff?
I mean, they're making this stuff, especially, I mean, a lot more people are of older generations are using iPhones and smartphones and stuff now, too, and they almost seem like they kind of make their database or their software, I should say, they almost mimic kind of like how an iPhone or something would be laid out. I know, like, they're making that stuff feel more and more like it's kind of the same thing.
Oh, good.
And I just kind of feel that, like I said, just a little time and a little work with them, and I think people would be overly impressed with what that information actually is and how beneficial it can be.
What are other new things that you're looking at or pursuing and trying?
Well, let's see here. I guess we've been kind of playing with a little bit on more of our seed population kind of work there. Our fertility, we've been kind of playing with that a little bit more of kind of trying to minimize some of that overall expense on some of that. Using, I want to say like a humus or kind of something for like the phosphate to kind of help it mine better and work better with the chemistries of the soil, and some of that stuff's above my pay grade, but it makes sense to me. But just trying to use more of what we got there without just putting out more product, I guess is probably more what I'm trying to say. There's utilizing what's in that soil, trying to break free and break loose what nutrients aren't able to get into the root system of the plant, and just trying to better our drainage and our soil qualities and build our organic matter and just kind of make that soil as healthy as we can without just putting on piles of fertilizer every year, and just trying to utilize what's already there.
Good. Where are other places you're going to find information? Are you going to farm shows? You're here at this farm show, so there's obviously you're coming here, but where do you go? Do you go online? Do you watch YouTube videos?
I like YouTube. I like going to a farm show, walking around, getting my hands on things there. Social media and that has become kind of huge, and you see someone will make a video of something they're doing, and you kind of end up clicking the link, and you're out in the rabbit hole, and you're just kind of learning what they're doing in their neck of the woods. And I would actually say just kind of the rabbit hole of social media and the internet is where I kind of start following a lot of my information and my new concepts or ideas there. But
yeah, and it's entertaining too usually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Easier to watch when you're learning and being entertained.
Yes, that is fact.
What's your thoughts on kind of the political climate? We don't have to get too political if you don't want to, but I'm just curious, do you feel like the threats of tariffs, this is probably going to be old news by the time this comes out, but is the threat of tariffs coming down the pipe something that you're thinking about, or you're like, well, it just is what it is, we'll have to deal with it when it comes?
It pretty much is. It is. I mean, you can worry about it all you want. You can worry about who they put in certain positions and what parts of agriculture he doesn't care for, and how that might affect some of the resources that we do already use and some of the buyers for some of our products. But at the end of the day, we're just a couple guys in Minot, North Dakota. What are we really going to do about it? We just learn to adapt and figure it out. And I mean, in theory and concept, tariffs seem to make sense, but there is growing pains with everything. Even if they work in the long term, there's going to be some growing pains, and we're unfortunately going to be the ones that have to deal with it. So There's not a lot we can do about it. I mean, it's a concern, but we've all gone through highs and lows before, so we'll just do it again. So.
Yep. And if it's anything like our own operations, our own families, businesses, whatever they are, sometimes you have to make tough decisions, and sometimes you have to go through tough times, but it's for the looking to the future, and we can't always be trying to ride a high and keep it going, or it might not get back to a high.
Yeah.
So.
Well, especially in agriculture. It's always been an industry of up and downs, and I mean, that cycle has been that way for generations, so it'll come and it'll go, and you just got to learn to adapt to what you're dealing with that year. So,
you ever wonder or feel like you're gambling with everything? You got to gamble with your decisions. You're like,
absolutely. I mean, the amount of dollars it takes now just to even put in an acre of a crop is a lot of money, and yeah, I mean, everything's a gamble. Is it going to rain? Is it going to price is going to be there? I mean, but I mean, you put in some fail safes there. I mean, you got your federal crop. If you do a little work on the marketing side, you can put some protection on some floors pretty reasonably, and you can take away a lot of the risk of the gamble, I guess, if you know your numbers well, and not always put the emotion in it and just run it that, I need this price to break even this year. A lot of years of zero is a good year in agriculture. You got to remind yourself of that and move on. But it's a huge gamble, and there's nights where the guy maybe stays awake a little bit longer than he'd want to thinking about it. But at the end of the day, it's what a guy chose to do too. No one forced you to play this game and to make your life doing this, and you just kind of deal with it, I guess. But
yeah, I can tell it's a passion because you just want to keep going after it and keep sowing the seed. See what happens.
Yep. Just always want to try being better than you were last year. So something you can change, something you can do. Just trying to keep the betterment of the legacy that my grandpa built in that ground, and just kind of keep the operation going and doing what he did. So.
Yeah, that's great. I think you have some motivation there, some legacy, and something you want to continue forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, what about we got to touch on air seeds a little bit. Do you have an air seeder?
I do.
All right, which one you got? Obviously,
I got an 1895.
Okay, yeah. 1895. Is it? It's obviously hydraulic drive. You're doing variable rating and prescription stuff.
Yep.
How are you liking that?
I really like that machine. Actually, not to plug you too much, but your boys were actually just out there this fall and pretty much rebuilt the whole tool for me this year.
Okay.
So we did a lot of upgrades there. The last couple of years on our own, we've put all stainless steel on the cart, all meter rolls and all the piping on there. And so then this year they come, we did they fixed all my bushings and my gauge wheel depth and all that. Put new seed tubes on, new hoses all the way around. I've been running the old intelligent egg blockage system, so we updated that to the new gateway rather than the old TP-Link one. And
okay.
So no, I really like the machine I got built now.
Okay.
It's neat, but
and I didn't know that actually. When you came by the booth, I just said, "Hey, you want to join me for a podcast?" And you hopped down right on in, and that's great. And so thank you for sharing that. We'd love to hear that good things happened, and it's helping you be successful. That's our goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you could run an experiment, and you didn't have to worry about costs, I guess, what experiment would it be?
So I've always wanted to do that, it never makes sense on paper, but everyone's got their biologicals they're selling, or you put this on your 2-acre bump. I want to take all that sometime and just take 1/4 of ground and just throw everything everyone says is going to do on it, and just see if you absolutely threw the coals of this, what the actual top end is that I could produce on this piece of ground. Just every single biological, every fungicide, just all that stuff where everyone advertises, 2 more acres here, or 2 more bushels on this, and 3 more bushels of that. It'd just be fun to see, just to take a quarter and just really just throw the book at it and just actually see what you could maximize on a particular quarter of ground. I've always wanted to do that, but like I said, it cost effectively does not make sense at all. But
yeah, that's exactly right. I hear that all the time. Like, if everything made me 5 bushel an acre more, I'd be, killing it here.
Yeah, exactly.
But that doesn't seem to happen. So you still got to do your research and do some trialing. How about, what myth would you like to dispel to someone who has no farming background?
Well, I think it's kind of the chronicle one that goes on forever of that agriculture is an evil industry, that we just do nothing but pour on herbicides and dump fertilizer in cricks, and just the actual care that people do actually have for the land and for the wildlife, and the stuff we actually do to try to mitigate this is and we're not going out and just unnecessarily making herbicide sprays or passes. I mean, everything we're doing, we're trying to do most cost effective. We want to use as least amount of product as possible too. And we're not doing this to personally just try to harm the environment and take away our ozone layer. But also at the same time, you got to understand of a growing world and growing supply is that we can't just all raise organically made foods, and we need large sustainable agriculture in order to actually feed this world. We all have our warm and fuzzies about how we think agriculture should look, but in the reality of it, it's just X amount of food that the nation and the world needs to produce. And we're not, I guarantee you, no one is wanting to put more fertilizer or more chemical on it or intentionally. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think just the stigma of big ag being so terrible for the world and the environment is just the one that I would say is if you ever really wanted to sit down and study it and look at it, I mean, we don't want to spend that money any more than anyone else does.
Yep. We want to be a good steward. Obviously not spend money you don't need to. Now, do you have examples where you actually had a devastation or some noticeable effect of pests or weed pressure where, the chemicals, either you didn't do them or you tried to go organic, something like that? Do you have examples of that?
So I guess in our area there is in cycles there we get pretty nasty grasshopper problems. And the hardest part of that is they'll just move on. So if you want to be proactive and go spray for them on there, but your neighbor doesn't, they'll just keep jumping around and moving there. So we've seen that where you've made 2-3 passes trying to keep the hoppers out, but your neighbor didn't, so they're all breeding right across the road. Well, you only get a 7 to 10 day window typically on that insecticide. And so then they'll come back in and move in, and that can kind of get to be kind of a touchy subject in our area once in a while was like pest control on hoppers and stuff like that. But
do you find that there's some collaboration there where you guys talk and be like, let's blast these buggers, or some guys are it's
and
fine.
Even down in our area there's certain counties where they'll even be sub-paid for by the county. Like you could sign up what acres you want, and they'll aerial spray it, and so there is community attacks on big problems like that at times down in our area there. But also, there's one thing too that is hard is they always like to be on something green. So once like haying starts and people start cutting grass and alfalfa and stuff, well then they'll start moving over to the wheat or the corn, or because they just want to stay on green leaf there too. So I mean that kind of get to be a battle too of what you got around you too. If you got a rancher next to you, it's got all forage crops around you. Well, once he starts haying,
be ready.
They're moving your direction.
Man. Do you feel like you're getting better, smarter in a way of like being prepared for this?
Yeah, and a lot of that just comes with the cycle of the bug. I mean, because they'll be worse other years than that. Being a little more proactive, like starting a little sooner. We've been finding like when you're seeing them smaller, you can get a lot better control on them and kind of knock that population down earlier.
They get bigger.
Yeah, they get bigger and they get more devastating. Oh, so being a little more proactive, we've kind of learned has been beneficial for us. But
okay, how about weed pressure? Anything there?
No, we're kind of staying with normal. Of course, we're finding resistance in some of our glyphosates and trying to navigate through some of that. That's one thing why you said we had quite a list of crops, and that's a lot of it is for rotation to keep mixing up our chemistries that we are putting on these ground there. So typically we're getting 3 to 5 years between certain fields with certain crops. So we're getting a nice mix of chemistry there, but. Like kochia is one that everyone in our area is starting to lose the battle on. Glyphosate won't hardly touch it no more, and then we also get we get pretty droughty in our area, and it's a lot harder to kill weeds when it's dry, hot and dry. And so if you already got a plant that's hard to kill anyways, and then you mix in the drought theory of it too, it can get to be troubling from some years. But
do you see spray drones playing a big factor on some of this, or just even in future?
Yeah, I'm struggling with the idea of how a guy could take it full scale. Like, how can you ever replace a self-propelled with a 120-foot boom that's driving 15 to 20 miles an hour? I think they're going to have their place, and I think they're a neat tool, but I'm struggling on how to see it taking it real full scale without making a huge investment on it. I think the one thing that would be fantastic with them is some spot spraying applications there, where like rather than like we were talking earlier about not wanting to put more chemical on you need to. Well, if I only got 5 acres in the middle of this field that have this weed problem, rather than making the whole pass on the quarter, if I could just send up my drone and go spray that 5 acres where that problem area is, it saves me a bunch of money and also is not hurting the environment anymore. I also think you get some of this rougher country with the hilly and the pasture area, like noxious weed control. I think is an area where they'd be phenomenal at, where you can just visually go up and just kind of spot spray there. And no, I think they're an interesting tool. I've had a lot of interest in them. I've done a little research on them. I'm just struggling on how to see how it can advance into a full-scale farming kind of situation yet. But
yeah, they're definitely popping up. Guys are doing them as a service, We've actually had a few on our podcast, and we talked to them at the farm shows. It's obviously very like an eye candy thing. This massive drone that could pick you up, and it's interesting to look at. Yeah,
they're neat. They're real neat. But just like anything, there too is this the battery length and that stuff. I mean, I'm sure a lot of this will progress a lot over the 4 or 5 years, and we'll sit here and wonder why we didn't have these, but. Well, they're a fun tool, and I think they're going to have their place. It just when we get there, it'll be fun to see.
Yep. Well, we'll be watching together with you, and I'm sure you'll be probably looking into it and maybe even spending some money to try it out as things progress and those services are available in your area.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Kalen, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, this was great. Isn't this great? If you are interested in sharing your story, even just coming on and chatting with me, we can talk about whatever you like. I can ask some questions, but we just really want to hear your story just like we did here. And I think it's encouraging for others to hear, even if there's some younger listeners who are like, man, my parents don't farm, but maybe my grandpa does, or my grandma still has some land, or I wonder how I get in this future farmers thing. There's some programs I think the government has, and so hopefully we'll be able to get someone on that's an expert in that and offer some advice there. But certainly lean in, ask questions, talk to farmers. I can't tell you how many times I've had inspections that I've done, and it's the last generation. They said, I got no one else. My kids aren't interested. I just got to get this seeder to get me by for the rest of this couple years I'm going to farm, and then I'm done. And, I think that's okay, but it's like, I wonder if things could have been different if there's some different awareness things or some different interest things like you're doing. You're watching YouTube and others are doing YouTube things. So that's pretty neat. So I'm really appreciating that. Thank you for your passion in the agriculture industry. Yeah. And make sure you like and subscribe here. We appreciate every 5-star review you give us. And we'll see you next time.